Hey everyone, it's Elise, and this is going to be the patch 10.21 notes rundown. Preseason is almost here, and so I'm really curious to see what sort of changes we're actually going to get, because the last patch was obviously a little lackluster. This patch does have more changes, and also the Halloween skins are probably going to be the most important point of the patch, so we'll definitely take a look. It seems like most of the changes that are happening here are all centered around Elite, as we can see using the key. Focused on all of the nerfs. The skins are absolutely amazing. I love the Amumu skin. We'll get to that one later. Champions, Aphelios. Passive lethality increased. Calibrum additional mark damage increased. Severum heal increased. Gravitum root duration increased. Infernum splash damage ratio increased. Crescendum additional chakrams returned increased. Passive. The Hitman and the Seer. 2 to 12 lethality to 3 to 18. So I think that a lot of people perceive this as being pretty much not worth anything, but I think that anything that is centered around things that have synergy with items in the future needs to be reevaluated after Season 11 drops, and so it shouldn't be totally written off, because people are totally writing this off based on the current idea of how Aphelios itemizes right now and what it means to him. So perhaps in the future, when Season 11 ends up dropping, maybe this ends up getting revisited and we're underestimating what kind of changes this can mean. Our Moonlight Vigil Calibrum additional mark damage 20 to 70 to 40 to 100. That is a lot off the bat. 250 for Severum heal to 500, so 100 super late game. Gravitum root duration. Targets marked by Moonlight Vigil are rooted for 1 second. Targets marked by Moonlight Vigil are rooted for 1.25 seconds. Not the end of the world. Infernum slash damage ratio 75% of initial damage, 85% of initial damage. Crescendum additional chakrams return 3 to 4. So this is totally fine given that it's centered around his ultimate. I think that Aphelios is still one of the best champions in the game. I was really sad when he was continuously getting nerfed basically throughout the entirety of 2020, and so I'm glad that Riot is slowly but surely revisiting some of his balance changes. Camille. Bonus attack speed decreased later. Hookshot. Bonus attack speed 40 to 80% to 40 to 60%. Now this is interesting because this is the ability that makes Camille pretty good, and generally when Riot tries to go about nerfing champions or buffing champions, if they don't go around the central identity ability of the champion that is mostly the entire reason why they're picked, then typically the nerfs don't really tend to do all that much. This is one of the problems when Camille was initially getting nerfed a very long time ago, and so seeing her hookshot get hit a little bit here, again, not probably the end of the world, because we have no idea what Camille is going to look like in Season 11 with all the items being changed up. So again, our current perception of her, this is very akin to Aphelios, might be totally different once we hop into that season. Quirky bonus damage ratio increased. Maybe now Nemesis can win games. Prosperous Bomb is going to have a 0.2 attack damage ratio increased. And so the way that Quirky currently does stand, this isn't a whole lot of damage being added into his Q. I think it's still obviously going to be kind of fine. I do question if this helps his wave clear in the early stages. Obviously, Quirky, some matchups he does get a cull, but that's a very minuscule amount of damage being added into his Q. And I think outside of that, once he does start getting his Mirror Mana and things of that nature, the Infinity Edge and whatnot, then yes, then this attack damage on his Q, which he's probably going to cast 2 times maybe inside of an extended team fight in mid to late game. I guess it is a bit of damage for Quirky, especially if he ends up hitting multiple targets. Graves, bonus armor decreased. Okay, so quick draw, bonus armor 8 to 20 per stack. And now it's going to be 6 to 18. So this is, again, this is not going to be the total end of the world. I don't think that the quick draw is necessarily why you necessarily take Graves. Typically, all that you're really looking at is what this means for 3 and 4 stack on his grit is all that's going to really matter. And I definitely don't think this is going to be the end of the world, especially because Graves, his armor is not super important against a lot of the mage champions that he ends up going up against inside of the jungle right now, but it is definitely something that you can revisit in the future. Definitely not a problem by any means. I think this is a very balanced change. Hecarim, base damage decrease. Bring down some burst from the Speedy Stallion. Okay, you devastating charge, 45 to 165, 90 to 330, and now it's going to go to 35 to 155 to 70 to 310. Not the end of the world, definitely, again, not problematic for Hecarim. This is pretty much in line with the Graves change, where it's just very balanced, and again, any changes like these that are super minor, even for Graves, Quirky, etc., we all have to think about what Season 11 is actually going to mean. Karma mantra cooldown refund for abilities increased later. Mantra cooldown refund for basic attacks now flat. R cooldown decreased. A new mantra for Karma to channel her mantra more often. We're increasing the payoff for dishing out damage so Karma can optimize access to her mantra. Okay, passive gathering fire. Mantra cooldown refund for abilities 2, 3, 4 at levels 1, 7, 13 to 2, 3.5 to 5 at levels 1, 6, and 11. So basically, you don't start getting access to this until she hits level 6 inside a laning phase, which is already pretty long. And the mantra cooldown refund for basic attacks 1, 1.5, 2, levels 1, 7, 13 to 1 at all ranks. This is actually pretty brutal, I feel like. I guess she's it's kind of awkward. So for top lane Karma, or any lanes where she's picked into a melee, this I think is just worse for her. It's pretty even, pretty much, because she ends up being essentially the same thing. Once you hit level 6, then she's back to being basically the same, and then at the very end, this is just a really weird change, actually. New mantra for Karma to channel her mantra more often. Yeah, cooldown 45 seconds to 36 seconds, and then 40 to 34. But again, if you're actually utilizing her passive a lot, I think this is still a nerf overall, right? Or am I? No, I'm okay. I'm botching that. All right. So, well, actually, no, because you would auto attack a lot more often than you would actually just hit basic abilities. So I think that's kind of strange. That's a weird approach to Karma. Lee Sin, base attack growth increased. The monk could use some more reliable damage to see games through. I agree. So he gets 0.5 attack damage. This is actually really nice for items like Trinity Force, but again, we'll see what Trinity Force ends up looking like in the next season. I do think that this is kind of nice because generally when Lee Sin is getting advantages in the early stages rather than opting for Black Cleaver, you'll probably be going Triforce regardless, and then you have other variations like Lethality and full tank Lee Sin, which are just generally a lot better. So that's definitely nice for him. Nidalee, base attack damage decrease. Base stats is 61 to 58. So this doesn't really matter all that much. All that it means is that if she ends up going for the Sheen build, which she probably shouldn't, if anyone has seen the math on the tweets that have been passed around the LoL esports community basically on Twitter about the supportive Nidalee versus the Lichbane Nidalee, then all that this means is that the Sheen will end up dealing a little bit less damage maybe in an extended trade, but not enough to actually matter or impact anything. Pantheon Q damage and critical damage decreased, damage and critical ratios increased, mortal will bonus damage increased. Okay, so it looks like they're trying to harm support Pantheon, but support Pantheon, if he just keeps building lethality items and skips going into Black Cleaver, I wonder how that's actually going to affect his damage. Obviously, top lane jungle and mid lane Pantheon are probably going to like this a lot more. So his damage is basically down early on, so once you start getting the bonus attack damage, this will end up balancing itself out. And then things will just go from there. So it's all centered around bonus attack damage, and I think that's fine. Mortal Will bonus damage, 1.0 attack to 1.15. Yeah, so this is totally fine. Samira, E cooldown increased, attack speed decreased. She continues to get hit with nerfs. That was a little bit of a mouthful. E Wild Rush, cooldown 15 to 11 to 20 to 12. So it's going to still be the same at the very end. It's just going to feel a lot worse in the early stages while you're having this ability get scaled up. Attack speed 30 to 50% to 20 to 40%. So she's now, I mean, at max rank, she gets what she used to at rank 3, which definitely does feel pretty bad. And yeah, I don't really know what to say because, again, she's one of those champions that's just not being let through. Interestingly enough, Yone seemingly has died pretty much everywhere. Even I was talking to some of the pro players on the Chinese Super server saying that they don't see any Yone on there either. Korea server, Yone is a bit like a ghost town and whatnot, and so Samira, while she does continue to be popular and appear, she also continues to show up in the nerf column. Trundle. Passive heal from nearby enemy death increased, now smoothly scales across the level. Passive King's Tribute, 2 to 6%, levels 1 to 15, 2 to 7%, levels 1 to 18. So a very minuscule, almost non-existent buff, basically, for until super late game, and even then it's not going to be impactful enough. W Frozen Domain, 15 seconds at all ranks to 15 to 11 seconds. This can actually definitely help him moving around inside of the jungle. Inside of a mid-game team fight, I mean, it's not really doing anything because you don't max, or actually, I'm sorry, I'm completely wrong here. This actually doesn't help him move around inside of the jungle. I just realized W is the thing that you max last. So this only ends up providing late game utility, so I actually blundered on that. Udyr, our aura total damage increase. Now, this is very interesting because Udyr There are certain people that do play him in Challenger, I believe on EU West. They play AP Udyr top lane as primarily the AP tank variation. And there is also an Udyr on the Chinese super server that plays him in mid lane, and then there's obviously a few people that are trying to play him inside of the jungle as Phoenix Stance. And so I think it's very cool that Riot has just decided, it seemingly, that Phoenix Stance could just be the viable, healthy way of playing him. And maybe they're just going to keep buffing that, but I am very surprised to see it. This is a massive damage buff, or a total damage 40 to 240 over 4 seconds to 50 to 300 over 4 seconds is a lot of damage to just be given over for free, and so that is actually really, really, really good. If you are trying to look up the builds for him, I think that you look up Vigar probably on Twitter or something like that. The EU West person that plays a lot of the mage champions and does some of the more unconventional stuff. I think that he's posted some stuff about that. Obviously, you don't want to watch any of the clickbait YouTube channels that claim that they're playing AP Udyr while they're actually just playing inside of normals with iron people and just pub stomping. You're actually going to want to watch Challenger level gameplay on the champion to see how the champion's trade patterns actually are, how he itemizes in the runes that you're going to end up taking. Believe that different matchups have basically Grasp and Omni Stone. I think that some matchups also have Phase Rush and things of that nature, and that's pretty much, I think, where his current stance is. Obviously, inside of the jungle, I think he's almost always taking Phase Rush, and I do believe there is variations with Hail of Blades, but not totally sure what exactly goes on with that. Runes, Nimbus Cloak. Nimbus Cloak's popularity has begun to stifle rune choices, especially in the jungle. We're weakening its power overall with a specific target and synergy with Smite. Bonus movement speed 10 to 30%, 5 to 35%, so it'll end up having more movement speed in the later stages of the game, which is going to be super late, obviously. Movement speed duration 2.5 seconds to 2 seconds, so you get a lot more oomph out of it initially, but it doesn't last as long, and so it's going to be situational who that ends up helping. One of the problems with Nimbus Cloak is mostly its synergy with Hextech Flash Traption, and what ends up going on there with anyone that uses the Inspiration Tree, I think is where Nimbus Cloak gets a lot of value. Worlds 2020 Clash Round 2. The second round of Worlds Clash is live with a 16-team bracket and special rewards fight for the cup and the biggest clash yet. Yet again, the Clash patron tier list, tier for basically all various brackets, so for anyone of any tier, is updated on Patreon for people that want to utilize that and try to have competitive building of team compositions and stuff that I ended up designing and putting out. There's no like public videos on that, but you can get that there. Good luck, obviously, in the world class and trying to win that and get those prizes. ARAM's balance changes, we're going to skip over those, bug fixes, etc., and that is going to be it for the changes. So let's recap before we just get into these skins. So a lot of these changes don't totally matter until we know more about the items, and so obviously for Aphelios, Camille, Corki even, potentially, I mean, it doesn't matter that much. I think the Corki one is probably the most likely one to matter, potentially, depending on how the new items are actually going to go for him. Graves doesn't really matter. Hecarim doesn't really matter. Karma's very bizarre because I don't feel like it's actually going in the direction they would have intended for it to go. Elise does potentially matter, but not really from a competitive standpoint. I think it's more so for solo queue. Nidalee change doesn't really matter. Pantheon is by far and away the biggest change of the patch, as well as probably Samira. Trundle super situational. Udyr is potentially a very big change, but I will admit that I do not know enough about him in order to make that claim with certainty. So now let's move into the skins, the most important part of the patch. So this is going to be the Halloween Amumu, and look at how cute he is. No one's playing with him. He has a pumpkin or a jack-o'-lantern or something over here that's trying to play with him. At least the cat's trying to play with him. And honestly, I see this cat, and I am just really looking forward to, in about 2.5 weeks, I actually get my new puppy. Say Samoyed, and I'm looking forward to having a puppy, and then the seesaw. It's going to be very nice. I'm no longer going to be lonely like a Mumu. And then we move on here, and this is Elise. And I like when Riot does these things where they make... obviously, Elise is very human-looking, but they give superhuman-looking vibes to champions that traditionally don't have human-looking skins. And I think that this Elise definitely looks very human. Honestly, one of the problems that I am having with this skin is that I feel like this also could have easily just been a Lux skin or something. Is this her... Wait, is she sitting on top of her own, like, spider form torso? I'm actually blanking on what these spiders... Is it the thorax? Is that... okay, listen. Don't make fun of me right now. Is she... This is a very disturbing skin if this is actually how she runs around. That would be so creepy if she ran around like that. That would be so creepy. Also, these pumpkins look really creepy. This cat over here, this looks really cute. It actually looks like a Halloween version of Pikachu or like Raichu or something. And then this in the background, I actually don't know what that is, but it looks like it's like an Amumu Chroma or something that just went wrong. And Fizz. Okay, so Fizz actually looks like one of those, is it satyrs or something? It looks like Sargeras had offspring or something from World of Warcraft, and that's what we're getting. So this actually just looks like the spawn of Satan, which makes me think that Teemo probably should have had a skin. Then we're going to go into Odyssey Karma. I don't know what to think about Odyssey Karma. This is actually reminding me of those people from Guardians of the Galaxy. If you guys ever watch that movie and you get to the golden part. There's also something evil looking about champions that have purely orange or yellow glowing eyes. I don't know why this looks traditionally more evil or ominous to me than the regular red eyes or pure black eyes or something of that nature. I don't know what it is about it, but yeah. Atrox, this really does look like something straight out of Marvel. This looks like, I don't even actually know. I mean, it also does look like it could be like Shao Kahn or something like that from Mortal Kombat. He does look obviously pretty buff. He looks pretty jacked. I think the skin does look really cool. I hope it looks cool inside of the game. Oh, another vibe that it could be looking like is if Scorpion just, started going to the gym or something like that, and then he ended up looking like this, but... Definitely, I think, looks pretty cool. Definitely a very nice Atrox skin. Looks very pog. And Odyssey Sivir, it's not really doing it for me. I feel like she looks very weak. I don't know how to describe this. Like, she looks like she's hanging out at a bar. She doesn't actually look like this. I mean, this might not be a lot of money. I have no idea. She's reminding me of a ghost from StarCraft. And if you ever played StarCraft 1 and you ever built a ghost, either you were Kerrigan and you got kidnapped and, completely transformed, or you were just never really built and you just died. So I think that's pretty much that. Odyssey Kassadin. Okay, this looks something straight out of Star Wars, like those droids, if anyone remembers what I'm talking about. This definitely looks like the droids from, like, I don't know, Jar Jar Binks and the droids just basically had a party or something. But yeah, I don't really like this skin. It's giving me mecha vibes. It's giving me, like, mecha kaiju type vibes mixed with some Star Wars feels, and it's not doing it for me. Odyssey Twisted Fate is, I mean, yeah, I'm not feeling the skin. I don't know about you guys. I'm definitely just not feeling the skin. It's like, if you're capable of intergalactic travel and you have so much money and you're some super rich magician guy and everything like that, why are you dressing like you're some poor man's Iron Man? I mean, it literally looks like he, like, stole this off of Iron Man or something, and then everything else he just randomly got on sale or something at Amazon. I have no idea. Hextech Kassadin. So this looks like Sub-Zero got really pissed off. I know that I made, obviously, a Scorpion reference earlier on, but this definitely does look like Sub-Zero or something is the vibe that I'm getting from this. Definitely interesting. I know that there's a lot of complaints about this skin. Apparently, it's like pay to lose or something. It gives your opponents a lot more information than they should otherwise have, but yeah. And that is pretty much it for the patch rundown. Definitely get the Amumu skin and the Fizz skin, and probably the Atrox skin. Those are my top 3 from this patch. There are obviously the chromas, so you can check those out and decide which ones you want to get there. Doesn't seem like... Oh, you know what? Actually, that thing in the splash art might have been the Amumu chroma, but yeah, the Amumu skin looks really, really, really cute. Amumu skin looks really cute. Galaxy Slayer Zed looks really good. Bewitching Elise definitely looks fine. Little Devil Teemo is getting some chromas, and so that's really nice to see as well. Little Devil... Oh, it was Little Devil! Okay, so now it makes a lot more sense. The Fizz chromas look really cool, too.